Rolling. Okay. Action.
Okay, hi, I'm Shivam Pota. I'm 20 years old. I'm a young filmmaker. I graduated from Tangling Trust in 2020, A-star in film in the Film A level. I have made a variety of short films ever since I was quite young. In terms of how many I've made, I think a ballpark would be anywhere between 10 to 15. Depends what work I want to count, to be honest. It spanned between docu-fiction, documentary, animation, narrative, as well as having around 20 screenplays I've yet to make or have written with the intention of making in the near future. My work has gone on to go to festivals in Thailand, India, America, Singapore, Hong Kong. Recently as well, we got into a festival in New York, we got into one in Australia, and I also have a background in film writing and film criticism. So I've been a part of the Singapore International Film Festival critics team. I've also been invited to Cannes Film Festival at the 75th Festival recently. I specialise in editing and directing. I've done almost every role to do with film in the past, so including script supervisor, sound design, colour grade, lighting. I've basically done the whole lot. However, my main focus is editing and directing, as those are my strongest aspects and the things I enjoy the most. I've pretty much written almost every film that I've made, but at the moment I'm trying to branch out and try and direct more scripts that I've not written as well.
So what are 3 tips for making a good short film?
Well, I feel like right now at the level you are in, or young people are in school levels, try and look at what is around you and write those resources in, for example. So, and write stories that will make sense in those locations. So for example, if you know that you have access to, let's say, a music studio, you could write a small film about a struggling musician, for example. Or you could write, if you have access to, for example, a shop, you can have a story set within a shop. Don't write your limitations into your script. So write the locations you have access to. If you know everyone you can get to act in your film is around 17, 18, then make sure you write characters that are 17, 18, because having an 18-year-old play like a hardened criminal gangster is just not gonna track. It's gonna look silly. I would also say at this level, simplicity is key, because a simple story done well will always be much better than something incredibly ambitious and heavy genre specific, overly complex screenplay that is done poorly. Because yes, ambition will shine through, but at the same time, simplicity is key. Write about stuff you know.
Right.
So for example, because those films always feel so much more authentic. So if you write like a film, if you, for example, have a younger sibling, writing a film about siblings, for example, a small short film about siblings set inside a home, is going to feel way more authentic than, let's say, a student writing a film about drug dealers.
Okay.
So my advice is, look at the resources you have, look at the limitations you have, and what you know, and then write that together. Because then you're writing and shooting and doing things in your own realm, and things you have control over.
Okay.
Another tip I'd say, never forget about sound. The amount of filmmakers I know that don't prioritize sound and end up having the sound be the biggest issue in their film. And I'm guilty of this as well. It's something I'm guilty of as well. Make sure your sound is key, because bad sound can really damage a film. I know for a fact that, it sounds odd, but people are more used to bad visuals than they are bad sound. In the sense that general audiences will complain about visuals, but sound is something in Hollywood and mainstream stuff that is done fairly consistently well,
They recognize it more.
that they'll recognize when it's bad. So you have to make sure your sound is always key. Make sure you have a dedicated person to do the sound recording on set, rather than having your DOP also be holding the boom pole. Make sure you have someone specific to do the sound who knows what they're doing, and make sure you put a lot of time and effort into your post-production work with sound. So make sure it sounds clear, make sure you add a good amount of foley and ambience and atmosphere with sound, because trust me, half of the film is sound. Or alternatively, if you're worried about sound being an issue, write a film with as little dialogue as possible, because that way, if worst comes to worst and your sound fails, you can possibly salvage it in post-production sound. But at this stage, don't do dubbing. So I'd say focus on dialogue. Like if you're gonna have sound, or if you're gonna have a lot of dialogue in your film, you need really good sound. And if you don't think you can pull off really good sound, scale back on dialogue. And always make sure you record ambient noise when you're shooting film.
Okay.
But yeah, and the last tip I'd say is always, if you think your shoot will take 5 hours, you schedule 7 hours to make it. Because, for example, so always schedule more time than you think you'll need, because I guarantee you, the amount of times I've worked on my own film sets, other people's film sets, they are so much more likely to go over schedule than under schedule. So if you schedule in a few hours extra, just in case, worst comes to worst, yes, you have to use those extra hours, but everything goes to plan, right? A best case scenario, turns out those extra 2 hours weren't needed, but at least you had them, because there's nothing worse than not having enough time to shoot. Trust me, there's nothing worse than that. So always add extra time to your film sets. Your shoot is, if you think in your head this takes 5 hours, you're wrong. You will just always add in another, let's say, 6 to another hour or 2. It always helps. Yeah.
Okay. So what have been some common mistakes or regrets you've had for filming a short film?
An easy one is not having a clap or like a clapping board when shooting, because you have to sync up your sound in post. And the reason why the clapper board exists, or we have someone clapping when they say action, is so you can sync up the video and the audio in post. Always make sure to have that, because that just makes life easier for sync up in post. It's just a crucial thing. Another thing, a common mistake I see people make is, I'd say, if tripods, right? It's in this. It might this one, right? The little gap. But with handheld, if there isn't a reason for you to be in handheld, and you're just standing there and your camera's just weirdly shaking, like almost floating, there's no point to have it, in my opinion. I think if you don't want to have the camera actively moving in your space, then just put it on a tripod, because at least it's locked off, there's no jitter, no shake. I feel like, yeah, sort of mild camera shake drives me insane. And I've been guilty of it, where I've not had a reason to actually have the camera handheld because I'm not moving in space. Just lock it off on a tripod. A simple still shot is better than one that is slightly shaking. Another piece of advice, I think a lot of people tend to be a bit overindulgent when doing some filmmaking stuff. I think don't over-rely on stuff like drones or gimbals, because they can be useful, but they take up a lot of time on set. So you have to think to yourself, if I have X amount of time, it takes me half an hour to set up a gimbal, can I do the shot differently? Think of alternates and backups to using very out there equipment and setups.
Fancy.
Yeah, because in case anything goes wrong, what's your backup? That's why I do use gimbals now and again, but I always prefer to have a backup solution just in case.
Thank you.